So I never realized how good beef jerky could actually be until I started making my own. So the meat that I'm using today for my homemade beef jerky is top round. In the US, it's labeled as London broil. It's a great cut of meat if you're making homemade jerky. It's nice and lean, and it really takes on any kind of marinade, which tenderizes the meat, gives it flavor, right? I'm smoking on my offset smoker nice low and slow for like 3.5 hours. So we're gonna get a nice heavy smoke on it. And also it's gonna dry out the beef, making it nice and chewy, yet tender, and has a ton of flavor. So one thing I'm gonna do is put the meat in the freezer for about 30 to 45 minutes. That's gonna make it a hell of a lot easier to slice nice and thin. I'm going for about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch thick. So if you have a good relationship with your local butcher, then you can have them do it on a slicer. Then you could have them slice it as thick or thin as you want. So one major key component of the marinade is using a hot sauce, but not any kind of ordinary hot sauce. My plan is to have these ingredients I had fermenting for 2 months. Got some habaneros, got some carrots, and got some garlic. Making a hot sauce with it, and using that hot sauce, making a marinade, marinating that beef, and then smoking that beef, turning it into some jerky. Definitely have to wait for it, have to have some patience with it, but it is definitely worth the wait for how delicious this jerky is, okay? There's a couple other ingredients that we're gonna need to grab for this marinade. I have avocado oil, got some soy sauce, got a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, got some apple cider vinegar, and then I also have some of my homemade spicy seasoned salt that I made from fresh peppers and some onions. Basically, I did a video on this, how I made it, so I'll make sure to link that in the video. Basically, I just took a bunch of jalapenos and then some onions and garlic, pulsed them in a food processor for like about 30 seconds to really break them down into like more than a fine mince. Laid them flat on a baking sheet with a little bit of parchment paper and low and slow dry them in the oven. I'm talking like 190 degrees for I think it took about 3 to 4 hours, something like that, to completely dry them out. Ground those into a spice grinder and then mix it with a little bit of salt. I have a full video, like I said, dedicated to that, and it will be in the description for you if you want to check that out. Absolutely delicious, delicious homemade seasoned salt that you can make at home, right? So good. I have a jar right here that has these little lines on it. These lines mean like a half a cup, or a quarter cup, I mean. Quarter cup, half, 3/4, 1 cup, 1.5, 2 cups, you get it. Okay, so that makes it super, super easy to make this marinade, you know what I mean? We're gonna start with the liquid stuff first. We're gonna go with 1/2 cup of soy sauce, which is gonna be that second line right there. We have 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, which is gonna be that next little line. And then we have 1/4 cup of avocado oil. The oil is really there to help take on the marinade. It helps keep it from getting like super, super dried out in the smoker too. We have a couple splashes of Worcestershire. And then 1 teaspoon of yellow mustard. I like sweet and spicy. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of raw cane sugar. And I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of that homemade spicy seasoned salt. So the last ingredient that we need to put into this is 1/2 cup of that hot sauce. So what I'm gonna do today is I wanna cook the sauce, okay? So this is an optional step. You don't have to cook the sauce. I do this for a few reasons. Number one, I wanna stop the fermentation process because I've made a similar sauce to this, which is the very first hot sauce video I have on the channel. You can definitely check that one out. It's an absolute banger of a hot sauce. I made this sauce a ton of times and I know that the flavor where it's at, fermenting it for 2 months, is just out of this world. I don't wanna change it. So if you keep it fermenting, it's gonna change in the flavor profile. And then number 2 is if you let it keep fermenting, you're gonna have to like release the pressure in the whatever container that you have the hot sauce in, and that's kind of a pain in the ass to do. If you have a hot sauce bottle that has fermenting hot sauce in it, then you pull that top off and you could get a geyser hot sauce that goes all over the place, and that's messy and it's spicy and not very good and it's wasteful. So first thing I wanna do before we actually do make the sauce is I wanna check the pH on it. It's always a good idea to check pHs on any kind of thing that you ferment because you want to make sure that it's going to be safe to consume. You want to look for a pH that's less than 4.6. Normally my hot sauces stand about 3.4 to 3.7, somewhere around there. It's room temperature, which is kind of what you want. It's sitting right at 3.7 pH. Here, I'll get a closer up angle of that so you can see. 3.7 right on the money, dude. That's exactly what you want. I'm fully confident that there is no bad bacteria that have developed in there. It's safe to keep moving forward and making the sauce. I have an Amazon link for one of these in the description. If you ferment a lot like I do, then it's definitely a worthy investment. I mean, it's $100. So like I said, you can cook the sauce. You don't have to cook the sauce, kind of whatever it is that you want to do. Put this on the stovetop, about medium heat, and bring the liquid up to a boil, and then reduce that heat to a simmer and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. And also, you want to keep a lid on it while it's simmering. The reason why I want to keep a lid on it is because as this comes up to a boil and a simmer, it's going to get evaporation, right? They're spicy peppers, you know what I mean? So it's going to put a lot of fumes in the air that are spicy. It's going to irritate your nose. And if you have little kids in the house like I do, you don't want to be skunking them out with hot pepper fumes, you know what I mean? It's kind of nasty. So, I mean, if you have a window in the kitchen, you open the kitchen window, you have a hood vent, you can turn the hood vent on. Otherwise, you know, I found it very useful to just keep a lid on it. And as it's simmering, it's going to really keep all those fumes underneath that lid. And when the ingredients are nice and cooked and soft, you kill the heat, let all of those fumes kind of just deteriorate on their own, and then we can make the sauce. You know what I mean? Let me just take a second to appreciate how smooth this sauce is, man. Wow, that's good.
Top it off with half a cup of sauce.
I have a red cutting board that's specific for cutting up beef, right? That way I know that I'm cutting raw beef on this and nothing else. Get yourself a very, very sharp knife, cut against the grain. These end pieces I'm gonna butterfly. Now we have these end pieces like this that are kind of difficult to slice super thin. So what I do with these is I just butterfly it, really, which means just to cut it in half and just open it like a book, basically. That's all you're doing. Beautiful, just like that, butterfly. And just so you know, this would make a fantastic salad dressing as well. Zip top bag, all of it goes in there. Or just in case this bag leaks or something, I put it in a glass baking dish. You want the meat to be fully covered with a marinade. This is gonna marinate for 24 hours, so after 12 hours, give it a flip, and then just massage it a little bit, make sure everything is nice and coated evenly with that marinade, and then we're good to go. So now the next step, after we let it marinate for 24 hours, is we put it on the smoker. 24 hours later, take the meat out of the marinade. It smells super good. It smells spicy, which of course is what we want. Baking sheet. It's looking good. You can tell that was hit by the marinade by the color of the meat. Really, I'm just doing this so that it's easier to bring it out to the smoker too later on. All right, so let's talk about the heat source for the small offset smoker. It is a small offset smoker, so having a good coal bed is very, very important. That's where lump charcoal comes into play. This brand of charcoal that I like to use is made from a Quebracho Blanco hardwood, which I find that it's a really dense wood. It burns for a long time, it doesn't spark, and it's a minimal amount of ash. Very, very delicious wood flavor on it, okay? So now, here we have, for the smoke flavor, I'm using hickory. I have a very, very strong marinade in it. I want to complement it with a strong smoky flavor. So we've got that strong marinade, got a strong smoke flavor from the hickory. It's a win-win combination. For the fire starters themselves, I like using these fat wood fire starters. I put it lengthwise into my firebox right here, and it has a nice clean burning flame to it. Really, really great for getting the charcoal bed going. It burns for a long time. This little thing will burn for about 10 minutes, which is more than enough time to get that charcoal nice and hot and ready for smoking. Cold outside right now, it's about 30 degrees, so it's gonna take a little while for this smoker to warm up. I'm using a mixture of like little pieces of charcoal like this, and then I'm gonna kind of stagger a bigger piece of charcoal on here, so it's gonna have, you know, quick burn on the smaller ones, and it's basically gonna act like as a pilot for the bigger pieces, and it's gonna just have a longer burn on that. Before I do start the fire, I spray the firebox mainly with a little bit of Pam spray, just kind of where I see that it needs. It's basically like seasoning cast iron skillet. On the outside of it, I give it a nice spray, keep it nice and seasoned. It's gonna help it get a longer lifespan on it. So I'll let this warm up about 250, 275 for about 30 minutes before I put the meat on there. It's pretty important to have your smoker nice and warmed up. If you have a cold smoker and you put the food on, you're gonna get dirty smoke. Dirty smoke is bad, bad news. Clean smoke, good tasting jerky. Dirty smoke, bad tasting jerky. I do want to take note that I let the temperature of the smoker go down to about 175 before placing the meat on. It's all about fire management at this point in time. So I'm gonna keep the charcoal bed going with little handfuls of charcoal and keep that smoke flavor going with little pieces of hickory. So I'm gonna control the temperature about 175 to 200 and let it go for about 3 hours.
Temperature control on a small offset smoker is all about controlling the size of the fire. After letting that big coal bed burn down, I'm controlling the temperature now with pieces of charcoal and little pieces of wood. If I find that the temperature is starting to spike a little higher, then I like to prop the firebox door open with a pair of tongs, and I found that cools down the smoke box just enough so that the temperature holds about 175 to 200.
Ooh, that looks so good, man. 3 hours on the smoker. We held that temp pretty good, 175. That was my favorite. When the jerky comes right off the smoker, man, when it's nice and warm still.